Welcome. In front of me is a REDMI Pad Pro, and today I'll go for unboxing along with a quick look at the tablet itself. Now, popping it open, we have two little seals at the back. Go. Second one, and now we can open it up. So right off the bat, we have our bunch of info laid out on the little fabric right here that is covering the tablet itself. So we have a 12.1-inch display with 120 Hz refresh rate on a 5.5K display. It's basically a offshoot of a 1440p, so more like 2K, but okay. Next, powered by a Xiaomi Hyper OS. Snapdragon 7S Gen 2, 10,000 mAh battery, support 33 watts fast charging. I love the little asterisks. No power adapter included in the box. Fantastic. I love the asterisk. So it doesn't support charge, or doesn't charge in this case out of the box. Great. And quad speakers for immersive stereo sound. I always love this bullshit kind of wording. Let's be honest, most tablets, phones and stuff like that don't sound good. So quad speaker immersive sound. Immersive in what? How badly you can make your ears bleed from the atrocious sound. Anyway, popping it out of the little fabric, we have the tablet, which is big in size, as this is a 12.1-inch display. So I'm going to boot it up, and while it's turning on, I'm going to set it to the side just so I can see what else we have in here, which we already know from the little asterisks, not much. So we have a Type-C to Type-A charging cable, and then just paperwork, and that's about everything we got in the box. Now bringing the tablet into view. In a second, there we go, you will be able to see the full screen and the bezels as well. It would be nice if I could flip it. Apparently I can't. Yep, apparently I can't. So I'm gonna go in this garbage aspect where it's cutting out part of the tablet through a setup, just so I can flip it to a side in a second. And while I'm talking or doing so, I'm gonna go over the screen specifications to be more precise about them. So we have an LCD IPS display with 120 Hz refresh rate, Dolby Vision, and a brightness of about 600 nits. It also boasts a 1600 by 2560 pixels resolution. It's a 16 by 10 aspect ratio with a 200 and about 50 pixels per inch and 83.4% screen to body ratio. Now, with that being said, these are actually a pretty decent specs for a tablet that is about 200 euros. So this device itself, the only downside here is that it doesn't have anything like a AMOLED display on here, which would give you these stupidly nice contrast ratio with super deep blacks, basically pixels off blacks. But it's still a decent display, I would say. In terms of brightness, though, it doesn't get that bright, but for indoor usage, I would say this is adequate enough, specifically if you just want to browse websites, YouTube, Netflix, watching while you're in bed, and stuff like that. This will do all of that pretty well, because the display right here is sharp, bright enough, and just has this nice 120 Hz refresh rate, which I think it's turned off by default, because this doesn't look like 120 to be completely honest. So let's quickly check that. Settings. There we go. Display and brightness. Refresh rate. It's set to default. This is 60 like no other. There we go, that's 120. So by default, it adjusts the refresh rate dynamically based on scenario to balance performance with power consumption. Well, that's just a load of bullshit, because all it does is just run it at 60. So maybe this is just something that they need to update, because that's not really how default is supposed to work. It's supposed to give you the 120 and drop it down to 60 when you're not doing anything. Well, this was running always at 60. If you drop it, or if you manually set it to 120, that is 120. Now, if you don't really see much of a difference between those two, then keep it at default or 60, as this will give you better battery life. Now, anyway, continuing on with the specifications right here, I'm gonna lock it and flip it over to the back, where we have just a single camera setup, but we have two different bumps on here for God knows what reason. So the camera right here is an 8 megapixel f2.2 aperture wide sensor that allows you to record videos at 1080p 30 frames. And besides that, under that, we just have a flash that has a bump to it for some stupid reason. Now, at the front, we have a selfie camera right up here, and there is another 8 megapixel f2.3 aperture wide sensor, again 1080p 30 frames. So it's almost identical to the back one. So, continuing on with the internals, like I mentioned before, we have a 10,000 mAh battery, and that is going to be a pretty decent thing considering this device is relatively big, so good that they put in a decent battery size in here. It has a 33 watt charging support, which, like I mentioned before with that asterisk, the charger isn't provided in the box. And it comes with a Snapdragon 7S Gen 2, so pretty fast processor, specifically for a tablet that costs about 200 euros. That is a pretty decent processor, I would say. And comes with either 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. So you have 128 gigs of built-in storage with 6 and 8 gigs of RAM, and then 256 built-in storage with 8 gigs of RAM. All of these options come with UFS 2.2 storage type. So it's, I would say, okay for the price of this device. That's decent. And additionally, you can skimp out on the price and go for the 128 gigabytes of storage. You don't need to spec it out higher, because we do have expandable storage using a micro SD card, which again, another plus. And anything else that I missed out on? It's running Android 14, which doesn't come as a surprise for a device that was released in April 10th of 2024, with a HyperOS skin, which you could see while booting it up. And additionally, moving on to do the build quality, we have front glass, which is Gorilla Glass 3. Then we have aluminum frame. So this is aluminum frame, and aluminum back, as it's one big piece that kind of like moves around, reminiscent of kind of like MacBooks and stuff like that. So it is constructed really well in the design department. I do like it. It makes it look more premium than it actually is, considering this only costs about 200 euros. So pretty decent. Honestly, we'll check out the price, because 200 euros seems to actually be undercutting the price for this device, to the point that I am starting to kind of doubt that this is correct. So let's see, Xiaomi website. Okay, yeah, so it's actually not 200 euros, it's more. So it costs, at least in PLN, I'll give that first, about 1400 PLN. So that would be about 300, 350, 6, 7, yep, that would be 350 US dollars. That includes tax. So I'm gonna quickly also check if there are any other like cheaper versions of this, because this is technically the first one I found on their official website. Usually you can find on some retail sites products like that cheaper. So you do want to be fair and see if you can get it for less, and indeed you can. So you can get it as lowest price as, that would be 300. So 300 US dollars is the lowest price I right now can see. And still, I would consider this for 300 US dollars. It is still a very competitively priced device, considering it offers a Snapdragon 7S Gen 2 processor. That is a decent processor in here for about 300 bucks. Fucking fantastic. So yeah, all in all, a pretty decent device, well priced. And again, Xiaomi just tends to deliver really good performance for dollar. So this is basically another device like that. It doesn't come close to some other like Poco devices that they sell, which just blast everything out of the water when it comes down to phones. But this is the first tablet from them, at least that I've seen, that also has a decent specifications for a decent price tag. So I guess it will join another best value for money from Xiaomi. In any case, if you found this very helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.